It was believed by 15 tough bikers that they could defeat a soldier. Instead, she destroyed their whole criminal business without resorting to violence. Unbeknownst to the Steel Wolves Motorcycle Club, a three-tour military engineer whose strategic brilliance would derail their plans for a community center building site was really their target. The use of state-of-the-art monitoring technology, psychological warfare, and military precision allowed Staff Sergeant Grace Walker to accomplish more than merely vanquish a notorious gang in the city. She turned them into the most devoted guardians of the society, from vicious extortionists. Interfering with the wrong soldier resulted in the most astonishing atonement in criminal history, and the incorrect target became the ideal mentor. Forge Thompson analyzed the security footage that was spread out on his desk while he stubbed his cigarette under his foot. Head of security, eh? Someone who needs to get a feel for the local culture is just another hired gun. I am unsure, sir. Uncomfortably, Mike Reynolds moved. I see that this one is unique. Extensive military experience, including 3 tours overseas as a combat engineer. Are you becoming blasé, Mike? There was a menacing quality about Forge's voice. Ever since this soldier decided to play the role of security guard, it hasn't mattered. Caleb added that she never flinched when our collectors attempted to frighten her. Instead, she simply smiled and uttered a phrase about federal authority, which explains how easily she sent them away. As Forge rose to his feet, his towering stature cast a shadow across the photographs. Has the federal government had a say in this? In a neighborhood hall. Although he chuckled, the humor was completely absent. Intelligent, yet intelligent can only take you so far in this city. From her perch atop a stack of steel beams, Staff Sergeant Grace Walker surveyed her territory across town. As it rose, the Hope Community Center began to take form. The steel framework reaches for the stars, and the concrete bases are set. She had a keen eye for detail and could spot any possible weak spot. Excuse me. A young security guy named Tommy Wells came over, carrying a tablet. I have set up the surveillance streams according to your request, they cover every possible angle. With a nod, Grace took the iPad. The fake cameras, too? Put in the exact spots you said, the ones that are so evident that they'll see them immediately. Okay, then let them feel accomplished when they discover them. Among the feeds she skimmed, she paused on one that showed 3 motorbikes circling the area. Punctual as promised. Hard had a skew, and David Chin sprinted up. Grace, the gang is starting to grow anxious now that they're back. Perhaps we ought to deploy the new security measures in accordance with the original blueprint. She interrupted him. Keep an eye on them, Steel Wolves. Show them that we are getting ready. That is, unless it is not what we are actually planning. Someone rang her phone. Investigator Rivera. Notified you. It's dangerous to mess with Walker like this. 3 Wolves security chiefs have been hospitalized this month alone. Those chiefs tried to match force with force, Grace said, continuing to stare at the circling bikes. My taste is different. Also, could you tell me your style? My experience in Afghanistan taught me that the surest way to vanquish an adversary is to force them to lose. Fear is the wolves' prey, detective, but they've never faced a really fearful person. The kind that is inherent to actual warfare. A ruckus broke down below. Even from a distance, the menacing postures of the 2 motorcyclists who had cornered the concrete truck driver were obvious. Right now, Rivera felt the need to summon reinforcements. Since Grace was already in motion, there was no need, she said. The first lesson is about to begin. With a lack of experience, she slid down, her boots slamming against the dirt at the same moment as one motorcyclist seized the driver's shirt. Is there an issue here, sirs? A look of utter shock crossed the riders' faces as they pivoted. Grace fell short of their expectations when they got closer. Athletic without being intimidating, her composed self-assurance more unnerving than any display of aggression. The larger biker let out a snarl as he explained how things work in this town. Security costs money. Grace grinned, that was intriguing. Federal prosecution is not either. A sign had just been put up, and she indicated it. Please do not stop intimidating my employees, even if this project is receiving federal cash. I'd be delighted to take a few calls. With their writing rendered useless, the motorcyclists paused. Competent law enforcement officers they could manage. Contrast this with federal agents. It was managed by the smaller one, and Forge will hear about it. According to Grace, she hopes so. Please convey my respects to him on behalf of Staff Sergeant Walker. And let him know that the last time someone dared to threaten my people in a conflict zone, they discovered the hard way why it was a bad idea. Tommy closed in on the bikers as they turned around. I couldn't believe it. Will the federal government actually be footing the bill for this? Grace's grin took on a feral quality. Rather of saying so, the sign simply states that it is a recipient of federal assistance. That is technically correct even with just $1 in grant funding. When they do, though, what will happen? There will be more significant issues for them by that point. She then looked across to the trembling truck driver. Make sure to pour the concrete precisely where it is asked. I don't only mean the community center when I say that we're constructing something here. Forge was in his bar across town when a video of the altercation rang on his phone. As he observed Grace serenely demolish his men's intimidation routine, he tightened his fist. He scowled at his assembled staff tonight. We demonstrate to her the consequences for those who disregard the local ecosystem. But a niggling feeling persisted even as his motorcycles blasted into the night. The soldier's expression revealed more than only her readiness for conflict. It was crucial to her. Every step he was about to take had been foreseen, orchestrated, and would accomplish a goal he couldn't fathom, but he had no idea. Combat isn't a test of physical strength, as the steel wolves were soon to discover. We're comparing wits here. One of the most astute strategists in military history had just been challenged by them. The already scorching summer weather was about to reach new heights. That night, Grace stayed in her temporary security office, which was filled with blueprints and monitors. Steel Wolves' retaliation was inevitable. That much was clear. What she needed to know about their organization could be gleaned from their choice on how to do it. She could hear the buzz of her radio. Please, ma'am, move the south fence. Tommy said a word that hardly registered. A couple of thousand. Drill bits. Retain hold. In her response, Grace remained glued to her monitoring screens. I wonder whether anyone else has RSVP'd for the party. 3 other shadows materialized at various locations around the place within a matter of minutes. The traditional perimeter probe used by the military. Unlike in boot camp, these guys had picked it up while incarcerated. Once again, Grace programmed her radio. Observation is the sole activity for all units. Stay out of it. Subtly, she grinned. Make them feel like they're the boss. A muted clang sounded when the first fence panel came crashing down. Grace saw 6 of Forge's crew members follow him into the opening. They coordinated their movements with experience. Criminal organizations have prior experience in this field, not merely street thugs. Shoo, one motorcyclist murmured, gesturing toward a surveillance camera. Very much like the last sight. Standard operation, nothing out of the ordinary. Forge motioned toward the equipment yard and nodded. Conventional practice. Before you move on to the equipment, remove the cameras. Communicate with us. For that, I have some new playthings. He patted his backpack with another. Thermite fees. It won't be enough to damage that crane. Everything will be considered trash. Grace's index finger swung to a different station on the radio. Look who showed up, Detective Rivera. Got 7 on the inside and another 3 or 4 keeping an eye on the outside. Thermite was also delivered by them. Hey there, Walker. That's a significant increase. I'm delivering lots. Negative. Continue as planned. Prior to setting the trap, I require their complete commitment. If it doesn't work, we can just put off the inevitable showdown. After briefly pausing, she returned to the security feed. Come on, Tommy, they're on their way to the crane. Complete the first stage. Out of nowhere, floodlights began to flash, though not the ones that were clearly fixed on poles. These appeared out of nowhere, hidden on the ground, and created such strong shadows that the bikers' night vision was rendered useless. What on earth? Across the yard, Forge's words echoed. Turn off the lights. A novel noise, however, became audible as his soldiers advanced. There are dozens of phones ringing at the same time. A unified message was located by every steel wolf as they retrieved their devices. Present a photogenic smile for the recorders. The authentic ones. The realization of Grace's strategy eventually snapped Forge's head back into place. Decoys were the plainly visible security cameras. A lot more technology went into the actual surveillance net. Covering every view with military-grade cameras concealed in building materials. Boss, a terrified-sounding motorcyclist yelled out. Such cameras are not your average ones. They're heated. Masks for the face won't work. Through concealed speakers, Grace's voice resounded. Listen up, ferocious predators. There is a building site where you are currently intruding. All of your pictures, heat signatures, and other distinct physical identifiers are saved and preserved. We have also added your phone's metadata to our records. Forge swore as he realized that the identities of the owners of all the buzzing phones had just been revealed. Distance yourself. Take a bow, everyone. Regarding Mr. Thompson, huh? Grace's tone was slightly light-hearted. What about Rick's backpack and the thermite? Fascinating selection. The origin of such materials has piqued the interest of the ATF. The video footage will undoubtedly be appreciated by them. Please identify your viewing location before we go ahead with the narrative. Click the subscribe button if you enjoyed this article. Tomorrow we have something extra special in store for you. The motorcycles dispersed as their once coordinated assault devolved into anarchy. While they sprinted through the gap in the fence, Forge stayed behind to survey the darkness. Show yourself, he said with a growl. Show me the face of a true soldier. The sound of Grace's laughter resounded through the room. Real soldiers know better than to play the enemy's game if they want to win. Though rest assured, it won't be long till we finally meet in person. When you're prepared to have a reasonable discussion regarding the future of this place, we can get down to business. An angry Forge stomped on a toolbox. Instantly froze when he saw the red targeting dots appear on his chest. No way would you risk shooting. Sharpening tools with lasers. In stepped Grace's voice. At the hardware shop, they cost $5 apiece. It is very remarkable how our minds can complete the gaps, isn't it? Effective psychological warfare disregards reality. What matters is what you can convince your enemies to think is true. Forge, whose self-assurance he usually exudes, withdrew. He hadn't felt outmaneuvered in years. A reputation based on terror had been established by the Steel Wolves. A soldier, though, appeared to be impervious to it. To make matters worse, she had a clue that his team lacked. Fear is a mental rather than a physical force. Forge got on his bike when distant sirens sounded. Sergeant, you are grossly understaffed. True enough, Grace's voice accompanied him all through the night. The start is here. Mr. Thompson, get some rest. Your team's ability to deal with actual psychological warfare will be on display tomorrow. Grace flipped off the microphone and faced Tommy upon returning to her office. Let Detective Rivera know that he can move in right away. Get his guys to take notes on everything, but particularly the thermite. This night is crucial for us to hurt the wolves where it matters the most. How they are perceived. Do you believe they will reconsider? Tommy inquired. Grace verbalized her disapproval. Yeah, Forge isn't fit to do it. However, his soldiers have just witnessed an unprecedented occurrence. Someone who can subdue people entirely without resorting to physical force. It's nagging uncertainty. It will mature into precisely what we require. As Forge's motorbike faded into darkness, she gazed at her screens. In battle, the toughest opponent isn't always the one who struggles the most. This is the one that will make you doubt your prior assumptions about the conflict. The first lesson had just been learned by the Steel Wolves. That soldier wasn't the only one they'd messed with. Someone who could use their own strategies against them had been messed with. On top of that, Grace Walker had barely begun. Clubhouse mayhem ensued at the Steel Wolves. As his staff fought, Forge paced the floor. The events of the night broke their customary discipline. It was as if she were con artists. Rick flung his rucksack against the side of the building. Those costs for thermite? The government is now systematically investigating our supplier chain. Excuse me, Mike interjected. She has our phone number information. Recognition of faces. Thermal imaging. Do not think that this is a hired gun holding a flashlight. The room fell silent as Forge's fist slammed upon a table. You all sound like frightened kids. You think you can be defeated by just one soldier armed with high-tech cameras? Forward, Caleb moved. Being a veteran gives him the confidence to speak up. Take your cameras away from this. Military strategy is her specialty. Remember that surprise attack? That was the epitome of disinformation. It was her desire that we enter. They hoped we'd feel in charge. Who cares? Forge had an intimidating voice. Ex-military personnel are nothing new to us. Dissimilar to her. Caleb retrieved his mobile device. Presentation of a file that he had recovered. Grace Walker, a staff sergeant. I served as a combat engineer for 3 tours. Expert in defending against rebel attacks on critical infrastructure. She went beyond serving. Protecting valuable targets from forces like to ours is her specialty. As the clubhouse's huge screen broadcast security footage from the building site, the crowd went silent. Their botched raid was shown in perfect clarity from every angle. Put it away. The Forge has been ordered. Give it a good scrub. Am unable to. Mike hadn't looked well. It is not kept on premises. She has it all on a cloud system fit for a military commander. Our efforts to hack it will only lead to more evidence. All of the phones in the room started buzzing at once before Forge could answer. It was an easy message. The footage shot this evening will be safely stored. The public will be informed of any future incidents. The decision is yours. What she's doing is making a huge show. There was a low snarl from Forge. However, he began to sound uncertain. Here we go again with the buzz. A link was attached to this message. The motorcyclists were horrified to see a highly edited film documenting their botched raid, which included thermal imaging of their faces and audible descriptions of their thermite preparations. When gang interference is reported at any city construction site, this version is activated. What followed was a message. Your image transforms from terrifying enforcer to embarrassing amateur in the span of a single video that goes viral. Through the room, Forge flung his phone. Have everyone come in. Meeting of the entire membership. Right now. Grace sat in her office, glued to various monitors, while the Steel Wolves assembled. Someone called her. Investigator Rivera. Did you send the video? He spoke. Justice's office is drooling. The entire club may be brought down by us. Grace said that wasn't the point. Our goal is not to wipe them out. Where are you going from here? As Grace saw the motorcyclists pull up to their clubhouse, a window of opportunity opened up. When fighting, it's not enough to just destroy enemies. Invest in them and turn them into gold. With structure, clout, and troops, the Steel Wolves can accomplish their goals. They are in need of a fresh objective. It's insane to think that way. What is the status of the community center's request for a federal grant? Then Rivera stopped. Excuse me. This morning, it was approved. Why? Just right. Please notify Forge. Make it clear to him what he is truly up against. Upon returning to the clubhouse, Forge spoke to the assembled crew. It appears that this soldier believes she can outwit us. She believes her mental acrobatics and camera work will derail our progress. However, she is neglecting one essential detail. These streets are ours. Someone from the younger generation stood up. Very possibly. It might be best if we pull back on this one. Try a less difficult aim. Forge got up to reply. But Caleb interrupted him. Please review your email, boss. The wall was covered with the federal award notification. Community Center receives millions in support. Programs for obtaining appropriate occupational training. Interaction with young people. There is a section on community security integration and a budget for hiring local contractors smack dab in the midst of the proposal. Not only that, but she's constructing a community center. Shoo, Caleb whispered. She's creating a chance for herself. Examine the security contract's pay scales. Numbers occupied Forge's gaze. They outshone the Steel Wolves protection racket earnings. Mike advanced toward you, boss. Last month, my children's school was closed. The after-school programs will be offered by this center. Orientation for the workplace. Are you losing it? Forge spoke up, but he didn't mean it. Then another one came in. At 12:30 tomorrow. Mr. Thompson, it's just the two of us. We should talk about the future of your club's involvement in community safety. While everyone else in the room started arguing, Forge remained quiet and studied the grant proposal. A long-forgotten sensation returned to him for the first time in years. Could be. Grace observed the stream, taking note of Forge's demeanor. She mumbled under her breath while fighting. Being on top isn't always the best position. It's the foundation of right. Tommy was her new focus. The ability of wolves to acquire new skills will be shown tomorrow. Think he'll show up all by himself? Grace inspected her tactical screens. Yeah, that's totally in the cards, too. A leader can be best transformed when his followers witness the transformation firsthand. The summer heat was on the rise, but midday would be the true temperature gauge. At the fork in the road, Grace Walker had just pointed out a different way forward for the Steel Wolves. Would they accept it? That was the question. Or might bragging lead to an unwelcome showdown? After what seemed like an eternity, the clubhouse was obsidian, leaving Forge to fixate on the glowing grant proposal on the wall. One last ding went off on his phone. Purpose distinguishes an army from a gang. Who would you prefer to lead? Questions would be answered tomorrow. A dream in which Forge Thompson was construction. Acting something rather than demolishing it occurred to him for the first time following his brother's death. The building site was slammed with the impact of high noon as the temperature soared over 100 degrees. As Grace stood in the shade of the community center's partially completed structure, she watched as dust devils gracefully moved around the yard. The roar of motorbikes came at the precise moment. Grace was not surprised to see Forge arrive first, followed by 5 of his most trusted guys. Grace couldn't help but smile internally as they parked in AV configuration, a display of power. Traditions persist. Grace, who remained still, shouted out, "I'm glad you could make it. While I think I did say to come alone. Mutual trust is essential, Sergeant." Forge dismounted and began to search for the guards he was sure were hiding. "Where is your safety net?" "Not required." "Hey, are you not planning to get into a fight?" A folding table covered in construction plans served as her point of reference as she indicated a temporary gathering spot. You have the intelligence to see an opportunity, and that is why you are here. With his soldiers spread out behind him, Forge cautiously approached. The community center wasn't the only thing depicted in the blueprints. Impressive arrangement, they described in full the security layouts, patrol routes, and monitoring devices, which Forge reluctantly acknowledged. But how about you? Would you like to see us go out of business? Grace did, in fact, advance. This company I'm presenting you is real. She punched the blueprints. Once it is operating, this center requires security that is available at all times. True safety, not protection ring scams. Those that are well versed in the area, charismatic leaders, and self-reliant are key. While observing the patrol routes, Mike drew nearer. These formations are of a military grade. Expertise required. For the simple reason that we intend to mold you into just that. Professionals. A folder was extracted by Grace. 20 of my instructors are returning service members. However, they are unfamiliar with this area compared to you. They lack the connections and familiarity with the area that you have. Forge's pupils constricted. Are you proposing to transform the Steel Wolves into a security force? Become guardians of your neighborhood, that is my goal for you. Distinction exists. An additional document was presented to him by her. Take a look at the pay packages. Supplemental insurance, retirement savings programs, and perks. Greater than your current income, free from the threat of RICO charges. Caleb whimpered away at the figures. This is some significant cash, boss. According to Forge, there is a catch. A catch is always present. It was a nod from Grace. A number of them. Licensing and training will be necessary. The membership records of a few of your members will need to be cleaned up. You must demonstrate your reliability as well. Both to myself and the neighborhood. Who lives here? Forge roared with laughter. For some reason, they are afraid of us. Is everything going okay with that? Terror dictates obedience rather than admiration. Is true authority what you seek? Put an end to frightening individuals and start defending them instead. Charlie, a youthful potential, raised his hand. Similarly to previous month when you helped my sister. The Forge took a U-turn. Excuse me. Uncomfortably, Charlie moved. Special education services were necessary for my sister's child. He was able to get into one with the support of Staff Sergeant Walker and the initial funds from the center. Unaware of my connection to anyone. Grace paid close attention to Forge's face. That's the mark of a truly influential community member. Instead of taking, give. Even if you're not prepared to admit it, your men do. What if we decline? With a shrug, Grace dismissed the question. Next, the video becomes available to the public. Your thermite supply chain can be tracked by the feds. The safety nets are taken down. Actually, that isn't the reason you're going to say yes. No. Forge had an intimidating voice. Why would I agree to this? Marcus Thompson, I read your file. 12 years have passed since the construction site incident. Site security was compromised, leading to your brother's death as a result of cost-cutting measures. You believed you could make sites safer by instituting the protection rackets. They locked gazes. What happened next? In anticipation of Forge's detonation, the other motorcyclists tensed up. His brother was completely ignored. Just one. While Forge's fingers traced the patrol routes, he only stared at the plans. Soldier, you seem to have everything under control. Sure, not everyone. You are indispensable to me because of it. Those are your soldiers. What you know. If you could lend me a hand, I could make something that would make building sites safer. Considered a lifesaver for your brother. The only sound that broke the long calm were the faraway cries of construction workers. Then Forge finally spoke. "Nobody pays the steel wolves. Collaborate with me then. Retain your autonomy, but do it for a good reason. The decision is yours. Become something your brother would be proud of, or be remembered as thugs." Additional motorbikes were coming up. The remaining steel wolves, punctually. Grace had anticipated that Forge would summon them inside. Timely, she remarked. "Come on, let's show your whole crew what I have to offer. Reason being, Mr. Thompson, this choice affects more than simply you. Every one of them is the focus. Their destinies. Members of their household." Forge had a fresh perspective as he examined his assembled men. It was Charlie's nephew who needed assistance. Mike sought a school for his child. Caleb, there's no need for brawls on the street anymore. He ultimately stated 2 requirements. We stay true to who we are. No company swag. I concur. Add professional patches to your leather. Give a glimpse of your dual personality. Plus, we do things our way. No, 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 military bull. Very rude, very rude. Lawrence grinned. Not going to work anyhow. In any case, you'll pick up on the right security procedures. Commencing immediately. A hand was extended by her. The Forge gazed at it intently for quite some time. She said something about your brother's interest in construction. Now is your opportunity to complete his work. Hers was swallowed up by Forge's enormous palm. "Staff Sergeant, you had better be correct on this." "You can trust me," Grace said. "When we're through, the Steel Wolves will have protected more than just this town. With your aid, we can construct it, together by side." As their captain clasped hands with the soldier they had attempted to scare days before, the assembled motorcyclists observed in quiet reverence. Even though no one was aware of it at the time, this was the beginning of the Steel Wolves' evolution from a hated gang into revered protectors. Wars come to a close. It was time to get down to business. It wasn't easy to get through the first week of metamorphosis. During their first training session, Grace observed from her office as Forge had difficulty maintaining control over his soldiers. 20 Steel Wolves stood in what seemed like formation as Grace's former combat medic, Elena Doc Rodriguez, attempted to instruct them on the fundamentals of security. "This is garbage," yelled one motorcyclist as he threw down his security handbook. "Rest assured, we are not military." "No," Elena responded gently. "You're not much better than troops. You are currently unfit for any kind of professional security work due to your lack of discipline and care." With an air of command, Forge advanced. "Does my guys have anything to say to you?" Unconcerned by his stature, Elena brazenly confronted him. "Due to their lack of understanding of fundamental perimeter control, your guys almost met their demise last week. Want to put on a tough act? Sure, just show me how a real-life security situation is handled." Her radio was keyed. "Michael, execute the third scenario." All around the building site, alarms started going off at once. Too many breaches, too many threats, too complicated, and too big for brute force to handle. Sites that are being targeted, as Elena declared. Various hostiles, unknown weapons, employees ensnared in potentially dangerous areas. I want to see the Steel Wolves' approach to this. Under duress, the bikers' customary cooperation evaporated, and they scuttled around in a panic. Without correct procedures, Forge's troops only made things worse as he barks commands at them. Their radios were broken by Grace's voice. "Good job. Only 3 minutes into this practice run have you already lost 12 employees, damaged $3 million worth of equipment, and opened yourself up to a slew of liability lawsuits." Forge severed his radio antenna. "This is not true. This is why you're here," Grace said as she stepped onto the training field. "So you believe you have a firm grasp on security? A sense of intimidation is familiar to you." The goal of true security should be to avert catastrophes rather than only respond to them. She then faced the assembled motorcyclists. We needed your skills, and that's why you're all here. Familiarity with the neighborhood. Skills and skills related to the body. Presence of command. However, at this very moment, you are like an unguided firearm. Complete control. Missing detail. Another motorcyclist voiced their disapproval, saying, "We've been handling security our own way for years. According to Elena, you've been involved in a protection racket. True safety. Preserving lives is more important than collecting percentages." The Throne Handbook was picked up by Grace. It is up to you, sirs. Do it properly or return to your old ways of being common criminals. However, keep in mind that the footage of your botched raid is still sitting there, ready to be released. The handbook was grabbed by Forge. Restart it. Hello, boss. A number of motorcyclists had valid concerns. I suggested we try running it again using their method. His crew beheld him. Thanks to sloppy security measures, my brother passed away. To stop that from happening, we formed the Steel Wolves, you remember? Alright, then, let's stop it. The subsequent simulation commenced. Unlike before, the motorcyclists paid attention once more. They grew wise. They began to grasp the meaning of true security 3 hours later, when they were both drained and humiliated. Grace observed Forge while he and his core team reviewed protocols. According to Elena, they're now getting it. According to Grace, they were always capable of great things. The correct inspiration was all that was required. Something was going on at the gate that cut them off. The Obsidian Ravens, an enemy group, had shown up. Strong at 30 and seeking conflict. Then Elena turned on her radio. Their development will be tested sooner than anticipated. Snake, leader of the Ravens, sauntered strutting onto the location. The Steel Wolves have reportedly gone public. Their area is apparently open for grabs now. The voice of Forge resounded around the yard before Grace had a chance to reply. Protecting private property is now our specialty as professional security contractors. Except if you guys are here on business. Establishing an appropriate containment configuration, his soldiers advanced with a newfound accuracy. Their positioning was seen by Grace. Sloppy, yet true in a technical sense. Snake chuckled. Security with a license. Wolves are printed on the patches you're wearing. Are you looking for patches designed for professionals? Forge pointed out the mistake and produced his recently obtained security license. Plus, we have information that you do not. The power to protect this website legally. What about federal ties as well? Elena exclaimed. It would be fascinating to observe the reaction of your parole officers if you were to cause trouble on a nationally regulated project. As the Ravens beheld the Steel Wolf structure and strength, they paused. Their every action was being monitored by cameras, and the configuration of the bikers made it impossible for them to escape. This will continue. A serpent posed a menace. Yes, Grace, that is. She took a step forward. Nevertheless, we are constantly seeking new employees. A real professional shift might be in order if you're sick of being watched by the police. You can see it's doable with the Steel Wolves. Following the retreat of the Ravens, Forge advanced toward Grace. That was strange. Typically, we would have immediately begun swinging. According to her, you are now a part of the protected workforce. The most effective fights are those that you are able to avoid. Actually, my guys did a good job with that. It wasn't flawless, Elena interjected. Your radio discipline was non-existent, your tactical positioning could use some work, and your left flank was sloppy. What about the first week? She grinned. Impressive for a group of motorcyclists. For debriefing, Forge rounded up his crew. They were also learning another new protocol. As Grace observed, she did not witness reformed gang members but rather young adults paving the road for successful careers. Considering a return by the Ravens? What do you think? Elena inquired. I can guarantee it, Grace said. I think that's great. The Steel Wolves see each test as an opportunity to demonstrate their growing transformation. What about when it comes up again? She grinned. Before the next time, they will be prepared. Forge discovered Grace in her office just as the sun was setting. His brother, he whispered softly. He would have approved of this, legitimizing things and creating platforms that are truly safe. According to Grace, he is the reason behind your success. The Steel Wolves' true nature has always been one of fierce defense. You seem to have forgotten the meaning of true security. As Forge studied his new security license, he gave a subtle nod. We are not and will not be soldiers. But perhaps, just perhaps, we can be something equally significant. What Grace meant was that you are already. What our town truly needs is someone like you. Guardians who comprehend all sides of the law. You simply have to learn how to do it properly now. Strength exercise the following day would be more challenging. This metamorphosis was just the beginning. Grace realized she hadn't simply eliminated a danger as she watched the Steel Wolves study their manuals in the dying sun. She had made something completely novel. Also, she had a feeling that Forge's brother was beaming with pride. At midnight, 2 weeks into the course, the call came. More than one notification popped up on Grace's phone. At 3 different building sites throughout the city, silent alarms went off. The voice of Detective Rivera crackled through her phone when she spoke to the Obsidian Ravens. In an effort to establish a point, they are simultaneously attacking all of the Steel Wolves' defense sites. In the shadows, Grace beamed. No, they are stepping into an ambush. She changed the channel. Hey Forge, are you tuning in? Already in motion. With its engine rumbling in the background, Forge responded. As anticipated, teams are in place. Put your training to memory. We are not seeking vengeance. Expert confinement and legal fear are at the heart of the matter. Understood, Sergeant. Grace observed the Steel Wolves' reaction unfold on her screens. Her 3 brightest students, each in charge of their own team. The community center was captured by Forge. The downtown high-rise was Caleb's responsibility, while the riverside construction was Mike's. They're about to experience an overwhelming shock. While keeping an eye on her, Elena made a statement. They were hardly adhering to fundamental protocols even as recently as 2 weeks ago. What a difference a little inspiration can make, Grace said. Keeping up with all the live streaming. Live feeds from the body cameras appeared on the screens. The Wolves had fought against yet another novel protocol at first. With their leather cuts now adorned with professional security patches and the appropriate equipment, every team moved with practicing accuracy. While in the community center, Forge maintained a level head and a clear voice. Invaders scale the eastern fence. The entire Charlie squad is contained. Ready yourselves, Delta squad, for intercept. Keep in mind that we are now licensed professionals. Exactly as prescribed. The Ravens were anticipating encountering dispersed gang members guarding construction sites. They were met with well-coordinated security forces employing tactics often associated with the military. Licensed security is this. The yard was echoed by Forge's shouts. You are invading someone's private space. Give up now or you'll be in trouble with the law. In response, Snake's voice chuckled. Right now I'm playing the role of the police officer, Forge. The powerful Steel Wolves, where are they now? We progressed. Forge spoke up. One another opportunity to do things the easy way. Raven swooped in. They were expecting a typical gang clash, but instead encountered a well-planned containment effort. The wolf packs herded the animals into designated areas, recorded their every move using body cams, and communicated with the oncoming cops. Listen up. With an air of collected professionalism, Forge radioed. Area 4 contains potential suspects. All deeds recorded. Little to no power exerted. Grace observed the results from the other website. Mike's squad was planning a classic perimeter defense, while Caleb's had already rounded up 6 ravens. Actually, they are. Elena spoke softly. Security guards follow all protocols. Provide leadership to every unit. Grace did a broadcast. Just 2 minutes until the police arrive. Keep the area under control. Take notes on everything. Put your training to memory. In the face of organized opposition and approaching sirens, the ravens started to crumble. Not everyone stayed. Some ran away. Precisely designated areas for containment. Police arrived to find a well-organized security operation rather than a gang conflict. Properly licensed contractors safeguard their sites with thorough documentation and following all regulations. This caught me off guard. As Detective Rivera observed his officers interview the arrested ravens, he made the confession. They adhered to the established protocol. Veer over the footage captured by the body cameras. I am very proud, Grace said. Every step was appropriate. Reduced force applied. Discreet business behavior. Forge drew near. The validity of his security license was clearly shown. Website protected. Sergeant on staff. The suspects were all apprehended or escaped. There were no harm done. Damage to property is minimal. Evaluate how well your team is doing. We need to improve radio discipline. Overall, Charlie permitted himself a slight smile, even though his crew was late on their containment pattern. We were successful. Snake yelled out as he was led to a police vehicle. You've lost your strength, Forge. Fate has claimed the Steel Wolves. No, Forge responded subduedly. This is our new, improved method of strength. His gaze shifted to Grace. But I'll confess that threatening someone with legal action for trespassing on their land isn't quite as intimidating as our previous methods. However, it boasts an improved version. Power by law. What is it like to be a law-abiding citizen? Forge observed his soldiers' cooperation with law enforcement. His attitude exuded arrogance. Different. Excellent, unique. In a subsequent debriefing session, Grace spoke to the wolves. It wasn't only about stopping the ravens tonight. It was the ultimate professional challenge you had ever faced. You established a point. Authorities. Residents of the area. Firstly and foremost, to yourselves. What was proven? Charlie inquired. That your effectiveness can be maximized both within and outside of the legal system. Perhaps even better. A voice rose from Caleb. The streets are abuzz with commotion. Ravens attempted 3 different locations but were unsuccessful in each. Against all forms of violence. Minimal disorder. I was completely outmaneuvered by experts. Grace clarified that this is your new reputation. Avoid criminals. Not criminals. Experts in their field who consistently deliver high-quality work. He rallied his men. This sensation will stay with you. We safeguarded something tonight. Truly safeguarded it. Leaving things alone wasn't as simple as spending money. This is exactly what my sibling desired. This is the perfect embodiment of the Steel Wolves' original intent. Grace noted a change in the bikers' bearing as they scattered. They changed the way they carried themselves. Not in the role of gang guards. However, this was in their capacity as competent experts. Doubt it will endure. What do you think? Elena inquired. Grace observed Forge and his colleagues as they reviewed protocols. Noting things to improve upon. They seemed to have discovered their life's purpose, at least to me. Steel wolves were fundamentally protective creatures. All they had to do was figure out the proper way to do it. The subterranean would be the epicenter of the night's festivities. Everyone understood. None of the steel wolves had bowed down. It was like they'd turned pro. They would transform into something far more dangerous than a typical gang if they did this. Protectors was their new role. The underworld of the city quickly became aware of the situation. Grace sat in her office, examining security tape of something extraordinary, 3 weeks after the Ravens incident. Individuals from the gang approached patrols of the Steel Wolves to inquire about security training. "We've reached Group 3 for the week." It was observed by Elena. Observing a gang boss who was Caleb's adversary once discussing licensing criteria. "The results of your experiment are surprising you. There was no accident." "Grace," she said. "There are repercussions for every military mission that goes well. We went beyond simply altering the Steel Wolves. The game was altered by us." Forge walked in, his uneasy expression betraying his new polo shirt bearing the emblem of the security firm. "I don't feel right in this outfit. According to Grace, you should keep the cut over it. Give a glimpse of your dual personality. They've come to us for that reason. You have shown that they can remain anonymous while becoming legitimate. Something was going on at the gate that cut them off." At the periphery, a bunch of ravens, among them Snake himself, awaited. "Ahead we go." Forge whispered. Conversely, Grace raised her hand. "Just a moment. Take note of how they're moving around. This is not an attempt to cause trouble." Snake lacked his signature swagger. He made a proper approach to the entrance. "Keep your hands uncovered. Have some business to discuss." "Business as usual." In Forge's direction, Grace gave a nod. "Program your hosting. This is your official title, Chief of Security Operations." Forge stood up straight. Taking on the authoritative demeanor they had taught him to exhibit without intentionally doing so. "Justify your goal. Pay attention." Snake writhed in pain. "The streets are undergoing a sea change. Forget about making money the traditional way. Not when you guys are demonstrating a superior alternative. Your training programs are rumored to be available. Licensed security certification courses." Forge adjusted. "At least 12 weeks. We need to check your background. And that is a rule. This is our purpose. Ravens want in means they desire access. Authentic employment. Authentic currency." The words were coaxed out of Snake. "We have witnessed the success it has brought to the wolves." Grace observed Forge as he dealt with the matter. Had it been 3 weeks earlier, he would have laughed Snake off the home. Observing him now, she could see him planning logistics and taking staffing needs into account. "I am not promising a simple task." The Forge gave the signal. "It all begins from the bottom for you. Get a head start on everything. Observe all regulations." "Is that so?" "Just as I did. Reason being, I learned something from Staff Sergeant Walker." Forge pointed to the building site where the Steel Wolves teams were doing their business. "Honest reverence is not born of timidity. Being reliable and trustworthy is the source of this." Snake turned to face his guys. "The next stop is Forge. We Ravens have always considered ourselves your adversaries. I never imagined we'd be the ones to beg you to teach us. Instead of classes." Susan intervened. "Accreditation in one's field. Distinction exists. Afterwards, we'll see the Ravens as they complete an initial application." Shock swept over Elena as she shook her head. "Gathering troops is your goal." "No. That was Grace's point, rightfully so. A community is being built. When a gang member finds lawful employment, it improves the entire community. Alters the way people live." Forge looked over the resumes with a thoughtful expression on his face. "This was always part of your plan, wasn't it?" Display the possibility to others by utilizing the wolves. Killing your opponent isn't the pinnacle of triumph in battle. The goal is to win them over to your cause. My first project wasn't the steel wolves. You demonstrated my hypothesis. Forge was cautiously approached by a young raven potential. Are their claims accurate? With regard to advantages? Savings for old age? Complete medical insurance. Forge is verified. Additional certificates also earn bonuses. Running protection rackets has never brought in more money for my people as it does now. Meanwhile, our quality of sleep has improved. Caleb chimed in as he and his patrol crew went by. We will not be followed. RICO charges are not a concern. Simply doing good job to safeguard good people. Grace's vibrating phone rang. Investigator Rivera. This is unbelievable, Walker. The need for security licenses has been brought up by 3 additional crews. Some of the more violent groups are thinking about it too. Send them our way, Grace said. The second phase is ahead of time. Next step. What is the total number of stages in your plan? While Grace stood by, Forge gave an impromptu orientation to his former competitors, who were raptly listening as he laid down the ground rules for professionalism. Every gang member who decides to leave the criminal underworld reduces the danger they pose to the public. Fewer youths enrolling with ulterior motives. Steel Wolf patrols were shown in Elena's study of the security feeds from various sites. When it comes to this, they actually outperform the average security guard. With their familiarity with the area, they are able to identify unsafe areas. Reason being, they were formerly the dangers. The task was completed by Grace. Right now, they're the answer. Forge was approached by a construction worker who had noticed unusual activities close to the equipment yard. Grace observed her ex-trainee react. Highly competent. Exactly as written. Attention all units, there may be an issue in the southeast corner. The Forge sent out a distress signal. Charlie and his crew look into it. On standby, the Delta team. Keep in mind the procedures. Admire him. The sight astounded Elena. Just 3 weeks earlier, he presided over a gang. He has now realized his full potential. Grace remarked. A leader who prevents harm rather than inflicts it. And others are taking note. The Ravens continued their day-long observation on Steel Wolf activity. Witnessing their erstwhile competitors' demonstration of the true meaning of professional security. As the protests progressed, more and more people expressed empathy and optimism. The finest part, you ask? At the verge of dusk, Forge turned to Grace and inquired. It was perfect for my brother. Changing the villains into the heroes. Establishing a balance. Your actions go beyond merely resolving issues. Grace, she said. Things are getting worked up because of you. The community wins every time one of your gangs decides to follow suit. The newly constituted security units all took their places as the sun went down. The cycle started over as Raven trainees were matched with Steel Wolf veterans. Is it likely to continue spreading? Elena was perplexed. Observing the reconciliation of erstwhile adversaries brought a smile to Grace's face. Suddenly, everything was ablaze. Reason being, we're not merely providing employment opportunities. Here, we provide meaning. It doesn't matter whatever side a warrior began on, they all understand that. A quickening in the pace of change was occurring. Something far larger had developed from what had started as a single soldier strategy to deal with a gang issue. The city's subterranean landscape may be drastically altered by this transformational approach. It all began when a group of motorcyclists interfered with the wrong soldier. No one had anticipated how quickly the true test would arrive. The arrival of the Red Riders occurred 6 weeks after the change had begun. A gang from another state that has a history of brutality and has no intention of reforming. The old warehouse district is where they're preparing to build up. While attending a crisis briefing, Detective Rivera made a report. Upstate, I have already visited 2 building sites. 3 hospital security personnel. A crucial one. The intel images were examined by Grace. 50 bicycles. Arms of a heavy kind. Highly effective explosives for professionals. Not your run-of-the-mill goons. They were a group of outlaws with an agenda to seize control of the area. In their eyes, we have become too lenient. There was a low snarl from Forge, currently donning the Steel Wolves cut and security commander badge. Get the word out about our metamorphosis. The old technique is still effective, and they're coming to show it. Allow them to attempt. Calmly, Grace responded. We have prepared for this very thing. Here is your tactical evaluation. Forge proceeded to the map. His analysis was remarkably advanced following weeks of rigorous training. They will attempt to overwhelm our response teams by hitting many sites at the same time. Their credibility is at stake unless they can prove us wrong. What sets us apart? Grace took the lead. These streets are more familiar to us. We have real support from law enforcement, coordinated communications, and integrated security personnel. A slight grin spread across Forge's face. On top of that, they are completely oblivious to the identity of the person with whom they are working. Grace gave a knowing nod. First line of defense. In a triangular configuration. Our professional presence is demonstrated by our outer perimeter security teams. Centralized reaction units prepared for rapid deployment. We have strategic reserves that can back up any industry. Forge indicated important spots. Exactly as prescribed. Everything is accurately recorded. Furthermore, unapproved avenues. It was clear to Grace that the streets maintained their own networks. We have local crews on board. What we've established is respected even by gangs that haven't joined the program. No one wants these foreigners to cause trouble on our land. The Red Riders moved that night. In their search for routine security personnel, they simultaneously visited 5 locations. On the contrary, they encountered teams coached by experts who were familiar with all of their strategies. Licensed security is this. Throughout the community center site, Forge's voice resounded. Trespassing on privately owned, federally protected property is a crime. Remain silent or face dire repercussions right now. Brick, the mountain of a man and the commander of the Riders, chuckled. Take a look at the sheep. Having fun pretending to be police officers while wearing their adorable badges. In fact, Grace's voice was audible across their radio stations. Federal witnesses are playing them. Your every action is being monitored and sent immediately to databases used by law enforcement. The distant sound of police sirens served as an appropriate precursor, but the actual shock factor was provided by the nearby structures. Cohesive formations of formerly incarcerated individuals, now employed as lawful security guards, materialized. Not only did the Riders have to contend with the Steel Wolves, but they also had to face a unified front of converted crews. It was Forge's final opportunity. Give yourself up to certified security guards or face legal repercussions right away. Use them. Bricks were placed on order. However, his troops hesitating. What they got instead was an opportunity for intimidation and mayhem. Rather, they encountered well-coordinated security detail that displayed a military-like level of accuracy. In the following 10 minutes, Grace's unexpected pupils learned what she had taught them. The Wolves and their allies handled the situation expertly, containing the danger. Strictly no violence. No breaking of the law. Only competent security guards supported by appropriate authority. Caleb reported calmly that the west sector was contained. There were 8 individuals apprehended. Every single activity recorded by body cameras. Mike presented the status report on the east sector. Police have successfully contained any fleeing suspects. As her instruction unfolded across many displays, Grace observed from her command center. There was more to the Steel Wolves' resistance than that. An instructional session on expert security operations was underway. When Brick saw that his squad was being decimated methodically, he charged Forge head-on. "You've ruined everything," he said with a boom. "Turn genuine bikers into security guards." Forge expertly maneuvered around the obstacle by employing approved defensive strategies. "No," he responded while expertly restrained the bigger man. "We have progressed. Discovered an improved method of strength." Upon arrival, law enforcement discovered a well-coordinated security operation rather than a gang fight. Everyone followed the protocol for handling detained suspects, including adequate documentation and professional reports. "Damned if I do." As Rivera observed the ex-gang members helping with processing, he mumbled something under his breath. "They accomplished it. Verified experts." As he oversaw the cleaning, Grace went up to Forge. "Evaluate how well your team is doing. Pressure is mounting on the radio discipline. Successful implementation of containment protocols. Little to no power exerted." On his body cam, he reviewed the footage. "We could have responded more quickly to the east perimeter, but we accomplished something tonight." "Then what is it?" "The fact that we're not faking it. What you taught us to be has come to pass." His pride shone through as he glanced at his teams. True experts capable of dealing with genuine dangers. Grace discovered Forge the following day as he and a crew of Wolves and ex-Ravens analyzed surveillance footage to see where they could make changes. "The streets are abuzz," he said. "Rumors circulated regarding our treatment of the riders, but not our tenacity or professionalism." When asked about the true triumph, Grace said that there was more to it than that. "A more effective means of power can be demonstrated by you." 3 bikers seemingly came up to the gate to corroborate her claim and inquire about security certification programs. "You see." Lawrence grinned. "Whoever can inflict the greatest amount of harm isn't actually strong. It all comes down to who can create something truly valuable." As Forge saw his team's patrols, he saw old enemies cooperating like clockwork. "Although it may come as a surprise to you, Staff Sergeant, the Steel Wolves' greatest fortune was in being thwarted by you." Grace cut me off. "Your intelligence in seeing a chance for change was the finest thing that could have happened. You rescued more than simply your crew. You ignited a social uprising." Another city, transformed, lay beneath the setting sun. The intended takeover by the Red Riders had transformed into a display of lawful authority. Moreover, news traveled quickly beneath the surface. It was the most competent, not the most aggressive, who would succeed in the long run. Some incompetent soldier had brought about a first of its kind. People who were previously at odds with one another have banded together to defend the very thing they were planning to destroy. Unexpected trouble struck Grace 2 days following the Red Riders event. Complete triumph. Crews from 3 different states sent applications to her office, all hoping to be the next Steel Wolves. "Something is wrong with us." As she placed a bundle of documents on Grace's desk, Elena made an announcement. "Do you recall our concerns over potential program resistance? Too much attention has arisen now. Several corporate security organizations have even contacted me. They are becoming aware of the outcomes." As Grace reviewed the most recent performance figures, she responded. "When compared to more conventional security firms, our converted crews outperform them in terms of reaction time, employee retention, and customer satisfaction." Forge came in, appearing distressed. "I have something important to show you." From the night before, he retrieved the CCTV tape. A group of well-dressed executives taking a behind-the-scenes look at one of their locations. Protective Services. The insignia on their briefcases was recognized by Grace. Most prominent Southwest private security firm. "We have an offer to be bought out." Flatly, Forge said. "Seek to comprehend our full functioning." Claimed they would retain my services as regional director. Keep things as they are. Their corporate umbrella is all that covers them. How much is it? Several $100,000. And there are stock options as well. Their gaze is locked. I could get life insurance for my whole crew with that amount of money. Grace kept an eye on him. I just don't feel right about it. Such as giving up on what we've accomplished. Money isn't the only factor now. It's all about the tribe. Concerning demonstrating that an improved means exist. They were cut off in their tracks by a din outside. Concerned, Caleb hurried in. We have news coverage. Great deal of coverage in the media. Somebody made the writer's takedown video leak. This is being referred to as the security revolution. People who were once part of gangs are now working as professionals. Grace climbed up to the windowsill. The roadway was lined with news vans. Press assembling at the entrance. Their little rehabilitation attempt had all of a sudden become a hot topic. Now is the moment to choose. Forge, she informed him. Keep on your own and get through the tough times. Another option is to accept the corporate funds while relinquishing control. Somebody rang Forge's phone. Another executive from the black arts community urging a meeting. He grimaced and turned off the device. So, what's your plan? I gained a valuable lesson about leadership during my time in the military. Grace, she said. If you let money dictate your priorities instead of your objective, you will always fail. To grow, however, we require funding. Expanded educational spaces. Superior tools. As a result, we will devise an alternate strategy. Eleni took Grace's gaze. Do you recall the government grant program we talked about? That one for creative programs of community rehabilitation? Elena was enthralled. The one that gives bonuses to initiatives that successfully reduce gang violence. We have good evidence from 2 months that shows our influence. Moreover, Prue. F of productive rehabilitation and career development. And Grace, she chimed in. I am a Forge. Collect your team captains. It is time to prove to these corporate vultures that we will not be sold. What followed was a flurry of activity. Grace and Forge were in front of the press as Elena worked on their grant application. However, they flaunted their activity instead of concealing it. Security is simply one aspect of this. To the press, Grace gave an explanation. This represents a change in the community. We're doing more than that. People who were written off by society are now having genuine jobs thanks to us. With his head held high in his dual roles as leader of the Steel Wolves and chief of security, Forge proudly offered his perspective. We're living examples of how, given the chance, anyone can transform. The public is safer for every formerly incarcerated person that we certify. The cameras were rolling as the workers in their altered forms displayed their standard operating procedures. Even seasoned law enforcement watchers were surprised by the perfect cooperation displayed by the former enemies as they worked together. Check out where they're positioned. A consultant for the police made an on-air statement. That goes beyond security duties. That is mastery of strategy. When compared to other corporate firms, their degree of operation is unparalleled. The phone began to ring non-stop for Grace at sunset. Their methodology has piqued the interest of several government organizations, security consultancies, and rehabilitation programs. Forge showed her the message and informed that Blackguard had recently doubled their offer. Due of all the attention we're receiving, they are becoming increasingly anxious. Lawrence grinned. As it should be. Security activities are just one part of what we're doing. The entire industry is being transformed by us. Present them with our most recent data. Those figures were mind-blowing. Results that corporate security firms couldn't match, an 85% drop in theft on construction sites, a 90% success rate in rehabilitation, and high client satisfaction ratings. There will be no sale. That night, Forge gave the news to his assembled teammates. In an effort to put things right, the Steel Wolves initiated this. In order to safeguard what is important. The way we've built it is going to remain unchanged. Everyone on the crew started cheering. They had discovered something priceless. Motive, admiration, and rightful satisfaction from their labor. Grace later discovered Forge going over crew applications for their program. She inquired about her reservations about declining those millions. He said that, in fact, his brother was on his mind. He was adamant that the construction business was in need of individuals with a deep understanding of safety and a focus on issues beyond financial gain. As his patrols for the evening began, he watched over them. We're creating something of which he would have been justifiably proud. That's hard to put a price on. While Grace observed, a group of trainees, including some ex-Red Riders, went through the motions of a security drill. Do you know the one thing that makes our program so special? Rehabilitation and security are merely the tip of the iceberg. It's all about changing. Providing evidence that with the correct guidance, anyone can undergo a transformation. Elena burst in with news, interrupting the discussion of pathways. Our application was expedited by the grant committee. They hope that other initiatives around the country can utilize our methodology as an example. I grinned. Forge. I suppose Blackguard can hold on to their millions. Here's an improved option, a chance to completely alter the course of events. Standing side by side as the sun set, Grace and Forge watched as their crew secured the locations. They were professionals who had discovered their real calling, former adversaries united. Do you know what's amusing? Forge pondered. Corporate America believes we're in the security business. They have no idea what we're constructing. What on earth is that? Grace inquired, even though she was already certain of the response. An enduring legacy. Something that will continue to have an impact on people's lives even after we perish. His commander's badge was modified by him. It was all because a group of motorcycles approached the wrong soldier and caused trouble. Lawrence grinned. No. That's because the correct individuals made the conscious decision to surpass everyone's expectations. The metamorphosis had been accomplished. What began as an approach to address a gang issue expanded into a paradigm for transformation that would impact communities well beyond the confines of a single city. New difficulties arose as a result of the national focus. Grace faced 6 state representatives in a jam-packed conference room 3 months after they made their public debut. It was her program that everyone aspired to copy. There is no denying the data. You have an unparalleled rate of rehabilitation, but can it be replicated elsewhere without your distinctive leadership? Said a representative from the Department of Justice. Looking over at Forge, Grace noticed that he was now sporting a fitted jacket over his Steel Wolves cut. Their balanced attitude is perfectly illustrated by this. Submit it, she signaled. Thanks to Forge, the presentation screen was activated. Alumni from our original program are now running 4 satellite programs in Denver, Salt Lake City, Albuquerque, and Las Vegas. In many cities, the video showed transformed teams carrying out expert security operations. Each group was able to keep its unique character while performing to an exceptionally high level of professionalism. The true tale of success, though, is this one. Forge proceeded. Researching criminal records. There has been a minimum 60% decrease in construction crime involving gangs in every city that has implemented our strategy. Up to 80%. A federal agent with doubts leaned forward. Reason being, you have enlisted the help of the gangs. Grace clarified that we had provided them with a superior choice. This is more than a job, it's a career path. Professional credentials, benefits, growth chances. Nothing that conventional wisdom claimed they were forbidden. Their new training director is Caleb, who stepped in. He announced the most recent incident report from Denver. A squad from the Red Legion made an attempt to invade their domain. Our graduates followed all the proper procedures. Coordinated reaction, thorough documentation, and no use of excessive force. The video was retrieved by Grace. A potential gang battle was turned into a professional law enforcement collaboration as the gathered officials watched in awe as former gang members carried out a textbook security operation. According to Forge, this is the main reason why corporate security agencies are no match for us. Both viewpoints are understood by our people. They are familiar with both the streets and the suits. Issues can be head-on avoided with their help. The FBI agent made a sardonic observation, noting that they were targeting former troublemakers in their recruitment efforts. Yes, Grace was in agreement. Those who have insight into criminal psychology are most suited to combat crime. But with the right credentials and legal power. Breaking news on the conference room TV cut off the conversation. Their alums had foiled a huge construction site robbery in Sin City. Forge mentioned the live demonstration with a subtle smile. Do you wish you could see our model in action right now? As Grace accessed their private streams, the officials huddled around the displays. The Vegas squad, headed by Marcus, a former Steel Wolf, worked in tandem with the local police force while adhering rigidly to all standards of professionalism. Grace drew attention to their placement. Tactical units developed for use in the military, modified for use in civilian security operations. We recorded every activity and measured every response. And just 3 months ago, these people were gang members? A prosecutor from the state expressed disbelief. No, Forge was right. All these people had the makings of successful professionals, but they just never had the chance. Up till this moment. The outcome of the Vegas operation was flawless. There were no harm done. No suspects escaped capture. Complete evidence for legal action. Grace clarified that this is the reason behind our cautious expansion. A solid base is essential for any emerging metropolis. Security teams aren't the only ones we train. We construct community programming, youth outreach, job training, and family support services. With new information in hand, Elena elaborated on the comprehensive approach. The majority of our graduates have opened savings accounts, according to recent statistics. More than 60% are continuing their studies. Family ties are said to have improved by 90%. Department of Justice authorities reviewed the data. You are impacting more than just individuals. You're changing the dynamics of the entire community. Because we understand something that corporate programs don't, Forge explained. Neither regulations nor rewards can bring about true change. It's all about dignity, self-expression, and meaning. Their expansion ambitions were shown on a map that Grace pulled up. The crews that have approached us regarding transformation are represented by each red dot. Our waiting list spanned 12 states. Caleb further by saying that the demand is enormous. Word got around in the subterranean world. The crews witness our alums not only making it, but flourishing. Equal opportunity is what they seek. The first Steel Wolves, though. Forge was approached immediately by the FBI agent. Forge pointed to the emblem of his commander. Continues to run security. Carrying on with our colors, however, our focus has shifted from threats to protection. Constructing rather than demolishing. After a moment, he stopped. Building something long-lasting was what my brother always said construction was all about. It seems he was correct. Certainly not in the manner that was anticipated. Grace discovered Forge glued to a photo wall documenting the program's expansion after the officials had departed. Visuals of reshaped personnel, accomplished missions, and community festivities. Her question betrayed her uncertainty. He responded in the negative. Imagine a single soldier who saw potential in us that no one else did, and that's where it all began. Here you are. An expansion map was indicated by his gesture. From one coast to the other, we're reshaping everything. You demonstrated that it could be effective, Grace remarked. My first triumph wasn't limited to the steel wolves. You became someone people could put their faith in. A living testimony to the power of change. A signal was sent. Denver was the site of yet another fruitful operation. Partners in crime now defending the very thing they were once at odds about. Think you know what's the finest part? Forge pondered. Observing the graduates' success in the workforce. We are expanding to every city. We revamp every crew. When a group of motorcyclists messed with the wrong soldier, chaos ensued. Lawrence grinned. No, it got rolling when the correct individuals were prepared to make a difference. It was just like I showed them. Grace observed as seasoned teams patrolled the area and new trainees learned protocols as night descended over their original location. The change hadn't merely been effective. It had grown into a social tide. There was a part of her that sensed that Forge's brother was pleased with the legacy he had left behind. After achieving success, problems arose. Grace encountered an additional danger for months into their nationwide expansion. Something that neither standard security procedures or expert knowledge could resolve. Elena placed images around Grace's desk as she alleged corporate sabotage. Blackguard security is attempting to tarnish our curriculum by luring our alumni with triple-digit salaries to defect. Forge violently put his phone down. Defeated Henderson for the contract. Our formerly incarcerated individuals were deemed too dangerous by Blackguard. Involved our own citizens as witnesses in our convictions. Grace examined the intellect. Blackguard was engaging in more than just staff poaching. All throughout the rehabilitation model, they were chipping away at it. They're terrified, she said. It's not as simple as stealing their contracts. We are revealing the inefficiency of conventional security firms. Thus, they are attempting to undermine us from within. By using our achievements as tools to undermine us, Caleb remarked angrily. Last week, Marcus visited them. Just like that, he started accusing prospective customers that we're actually conducting a high-tech gang organization. On her feet, Grace approached the wall map depicting their growth. Programs were designated as successful with red pins. Sites in development were indicated with blue. However, black pins began to emerge. The places where they had lost contracts due to Blackguard's business strategies. What they're actually attacking is completely foreign to them. Shoo, she whispered. Security contracts aren't the only thing here. All it's about is showing that humans are malleable. What then is going on? With the cool professionalism that had supplanted his previous swagger as a gang leader, Forge inquired. Their financial resources and business relationships are unmatched by us. Grace smirked a little, though. What we can do, nevertheless, is completely unexpected by them. Caleb, contact each and every site coordinator. Tomorrow I would like all team leaders to be present. It is time to demonstrate unequivocal commitment to these corporate predators. Grace was confronted the following day by a group of reformed gang bosses. Every one of them is now a trained security chief. Each and every one of their program's fruitful outposts had flown in from around the nation to be there. She started by saying that Blackguard believes they can buy us out. They can only perceive the monetary value, they have no idea what we have created here. Her hand motioned for the leaders who had gathered. Peruse your surroundings. Former adversaries who are now collaborators. The people who once protected that civilization have now given up on protecting it. That won't be sold for any amount. Forge moved to the front. In exchange for my testimony that this program is fraudulent, they offered me $2 million to defect. He withdrew the check and promptly tore it in half. Shortcuts in security that prioritized profits killed my brother. Defeating what we set out to do is not being us. As they went, other leaders related comparable anecdotes. By offering fortunes to betray the program, Blackguard had approached all of them. They had all declined. However, Grace insisted that our actions should go beyond simple refusal. We must prove to Blackguard and everyone else just who we have become, since they are utilizing our history against us. They devised a daring idea. They would flaunt their metamorphosis rather than conceal their criminal pasts. We will document and publicize every graduate's success story. Grace clarified that there would be total candor. Both the before and after are displayed to the world. Show them what it's like to undergo actual therapy. Public displays of their professional skills were orchestrated by Caleb, while Elena dealt with media firms. Proven security experts who were once part of the gang showcased their skills for the cameras. Impressive. This is our former selves, Forge proudly displayed his old mugshot to interviewers. And this is the person we owe to Staff Sergeant Walker. With a military precision, he signaled to his teams carrying out intricate security operations. All around the country, word got out. A number of other rehabilitation organizations began contacting them in an effort to study their techniques. Even government agencies that had doubts about the feasibility of change now saw evidence of it. However, things started to change when numerous large construction corporations openly disregarded Blackguard, pointing to the exceptional results achieved by Grace's graduates as the reason. A CEO made the case on national television that it's about more than just security anymore. These folks know about flank protection. Other companies don't even anticipate the difficulties that they avert. Blackguard's plan completely failed. The distinction between corporate security and genuine rehabilitation was demonstrated by every graduate they had helped. The program's credibility was further enhanced by their testimony regarding Blackguard's attempted sabotage. What did they actually lose to? Grace questioned Forge as they observed the training of new sailors. Neither our strategy nor our candor. They were unable to purchase loyalty since they failed to comprehend it. Forge proudly nodded as he saw his teams carry out their responsibilities. They assumed we were merely operating a security firm. I had no idea we were constructing something monumental. A shift, Grace concurred. Demonstration that a chance encounter has the power to change lives. For Blackguard, that was the ultimate nightmare. Nobody but us was able to do what they said was impossible. Grace called a meeting of all the squad captains as night fell so they could receive one more briefing. The space was teeming with tangible evidence of metamorphosis. Those who were once involved in gangs are now trusted security chiefs. She informed them that the Blackguard had attempted to wreck our future by utilizing our history. Our past is a source of strength, but they failed to recognize this. Who we were allowed us to succeed, rather than the other way around. We are better able to safeguard what is important when we know all sides of the law. The final day's numbers were reported by Caleb. There have been 5 new contracts signed, 3 additional communities have asked to implement the program, and hundreds of workers from around the country have asked to participate in their training. Forge noted that despite their efforts to weaken us, we emerged even stronger. According to Grace, it's because they've never grasped our true nature. We are more than a rehabilitation program or security firm, we are live proof that change is possible, and that is something that big money can't change. Grace kept an eye on her team as they secured sites all throughout the city as night fell. A life was changed for every guard and patrol. Their greatest strength has been bolstered despite Blackguard's best efforts to damage their reputation. Those who had been granted a second opportunity were incredibly devoted. It wasn't only the wrong soldier who had built a security software. Something she had created was unattainable by corporate squatters. True metamorphosis. And the unbreakable links it formed. Everything changed after the Blackguard event. After just 5 months of participation in the program, Grace was asked to speak at a national conference on rehabilitation for former criminals. Members of Congress, heads of state and local police departments, and rehabilitation specialists from around the nation were in attendance. As she stood next to Forge, who was now sporting his trademark blend of business clothing and an steel wolf cut, she emphasized that traditional security firms saw our origins as a disadvantage. They totally failed to grasp the concept. Grasping the two sides of the equation is the key to our success. Forge assumed control, captivating all observers with his authoritative demeanor. "I was in charge of a gang that terrorized building sites 6 months ago. In my current role as head of a professional security operation, we outperform all corporate TE teams combined. So what's the catch?" While most people saw danger, one person saw opportunity. Their most recent data were displayed on the presentation screens. In 15 different cities, more than 500 formerly incarcerated individuals have found new careers as licensed security guards. Worldwide, their campaign had a devastating effect on crime rates. According to Grace, though, this is what's truly important. No reoffending. So far, not a single alum has gone back to committing crimes. Simply said, we're giving people a reason to live their lives rather than only a work. He put up his hand, the chief of police quizzically. What happened when they were tempted by familiar crews that wanted to entice them again? Let them see. After Grace gave Elena the go-ahead, Elena retrieved video from the week before. In the video, a group of Denver graduates took on their previous gang friends. A possible gang war was transformed into a recruiting opportunity when, instead of resorting to violence, they displayed professional security practices. Forge boastfully claimed that 3 of those would-be assailants are now enrolled in our training program. True transformation occurs in this way. Instead of using force, set a good example. The last part of the presentation detailed their most recent program, the Guardian Transformation Program, which aims to transform formerly incarcerated individuals into trained security guards by providing them with a variety of services, including counseling, family assistance, and opportunities to advance in their careers. It was only the beginning, Grace said, with the Steel Wolves. We are now constructing a system of changed crews around the country. The next group learns from the experiences of the previous one. Caleb, who is now the Director of National Training, revealed the updated course outline. Hybrid security measures derived from military standards and tailored for civilian use, informed by extensive knowledge of criminal psychology. Not only do our alums put an end to criminal activity, they actively work to eradicate it. The data on community integration were especially impressive to the audience. People in the area who used to be afraid of the gangs now looked to them for safety. Legitimately, professionally, effectively. Grace went on to say that something Blackguard taught us was the actual game changer. They sought to use our history for their own ends, but we have transformed it into an asset by being completely forthright about our past and present selves. Forge signaled to the group of individuals he had assembled to oversee security operations, they had all been gang bosses in the past. We proudly display our tattoos and cuts. To them, we add. Present all aspects of our voyage. Because true transformation doesn't include leaving your past behind, rather, it involves becoming your best self. News of an emergency cut short the lecture. Graduates of the program collaborated well with local law enforcement to foil a concerted assault on Los Angeles construction sites. Exciting live demonstration. Lawrence grinned. Bringing up their protected feeds. Officials were astounded to see formerly incarcerated individuals carry out flawless security procedures. When compared to their expert response, conventional security teams appear incompetent. According to Forge, this is the appearance of true rehabilitation. Rather than only reducing criminal behavior, rehabilitating ex-offenders into guardians of society is the goal. The fact that transformation is possible is demonstrated by every graduate. Forge was examining applications from crews all throughout the nation when Grace found him after the meeting. Following the Black Art event, their program's waiting list expanded at an exponential rate. See something funny? He pondered. By bringing our history to light, those corporate lawyers hope to ruin us. Little did I know that our history is the secret ingredient to our invincibility. Because they fail to grasp the concept of true metamorphosis, Grace retorted. Variations on the surface are visible to them. We're swapping out the fuses. Elena broke the news quickly. Many large police agencies are interested in adopting our training methods. Rumor has said that our alums are more knowledgeable in crime prevention than their own analysts. Then we do, Forge said with a smile. Let us tell you, we've seen it all. Instead of threatening, we are now protecting with that information. Grace thought on their adventure later that night as she watched fresh recruits practicing alongside veteran grads. Something revolutionary had grown out of what had begun as an answer to the gang problem on one construction site. A completely novel strategy for safety and recovery. Do you know what the Black Guard truly failed to grasp? As they watched the training, she spoke to Forge and inquired. Because it is not about money, you cannot purchase what we have created. It's all about changing. To show that with the correct support, anyone can make a change for the better. Forge watched as his erstwhile adversaries worked together with expert precision and nodded in agreement. It all began when a group of motorcyclists interfered with the wrong soldier. Lawrence grinned. It wasn't the right soldier meeting the right motorcyclists that set it in motion. A group of individuals who are prepared to achieve unprecedented levels of success. As the night shift changed guards, the two teams worked together as a well-oiled machine. People who were formerly ostracized by society are now trusted protectors, including former gang members. A living testimony to the power of chance and purpose in elevating even the most seemingly unqualified individuals to the level of professional excellence. Some incompetent soldier had brought about a first of its kind. A paradigm shift that was influencing rehabilitative practices all across the country, not only in the realm of security. An unannounced guest showed up at Grace's office 6 months after the program started. Interpol agent, accompanied by diplomatic credentials and a dossier with global statistics. The agency went on to say that your model has been noticed abroad. In particular, the success rates of your rehabilitation programs are of interest to a number of European countries. It's completely new to us. Grace exchanged knowing looks with Forge, who suddenly exuded the effortless authority of a commanding figure in the security forces. Allow me to make an educated guess. My issues are similar to yours. Theft on construction sites, criminal organizations, inefficient conventional security measures. Very much so. However, what piques our attention the most is your process for transformation. Repurposing criminal groups as lawful security agencies. It has never happened before. Various forges disseminated their most recent performance reports. We do the inverse of what most programs do, we attempt to keep these people's identities intact. We capitalize on their pre-existing abilities, familiarity with the area, and established systems. Agents from Interpol reviewed video recordings of their missions. People who were once members of a gang are now following exacting security standards while preserving their true identities. The best of all worlds, professional brilliance and street cred. But how can one keep their composure? He inquired. Stop them from going back to their old ways? Lawrence grinned. They are beyond our control. Our gift to them is an improvement above their previous existence. Aim, admiration, and lawful achievement. Let them see. Forge retrieved real-time feeds from all throughout the nation. Revolutionized teams coordinating intricate security operations, training new troops, and collaborating closely with authorities. These two groups were at odds just 6 months ago. Forge elaborated. They have passed the exam and are now qualified to work as security experts. It wasn't because we coerced them into changing, rather, we demonstrated a more effective means of strength. A ruckus cut them off. Caleb rushed in with devastating news. Breaking news in Miami. The ports are being threatened by a new cartel. They intend to disrupt our commencement celebration. Grace wasted little time getting to the control room. The agent from Interpol is closely monitoring the situation on many displays. A potentially fatal catastrophe was unfolding before their eyes. However, they observed orderliness rather than disorder. They instituted textbook containment methods with the help of their Miami alums, headed by Rodriguez, a former gang lieutenant and current security commander. A disastrous backfire occurred when the cartels tried to interrupt the wedding. Take note of how they replied. To the agent's astonishment, Grace indicated. Strictly no violence. Avoid taking vengeance. Security work that is strictly professional. Conventional security measures, however, are inadequate when faced with knowledge of criminal methods. Included forge. Some people don't even notice when they're preventing problems. Everything in Miami worked out flawlessly. The cartel achieved neutrality. All deeds recorded. Harmonious collaboration with regional officials. Yet another proof of how well their program works. This is the appearance of true change. The agent was briefed by Grace. Redirecting existing skills toward legitimate ends is just as important as changing behavior. After that, we'll take a look at the plan for Interpol's global expansion. Forge voiced his disapproval. International boundaries. Various gang cultures. Are we able to test our model on a global scale? Everyone can relate to the fundamental idea. Grace, she said. All people are searching for meaning in life. A shot at surpassing societal expectations. Showing them how is all we do. Elena came bearing other questions from across the world. Europe, the United Kingdom, and Oceania. Program information are being requested by each of them. Rehabilitative theory is being rewritten by our success rates. Because we had a clue that other people didn't. Forge said, he stated. Observing the training of both new recruits and recent graduates. Dismantling people won't bring about real change. It results from demonstrating an improved method of strength to them. During the day, the Interpol agent watched how they worked. He observed exes who had been feuding professionally collaborating. Observed the expert fusion of street knowledge and security skills. He took note of your graduates. They have not changed who they originally are. The Steel Wolves' wounds are visible even now. The identities and domains of other crews are preserved. Grace clarified that there was a change in goal. There's more to them than meets the eye. Their role is that of protectors. Defending the communities they dared to attack in the past. Grace spoke to a fresh group of recruits that night. People who have been a part of gangs across the nation. About to embark on their metamorphosis. She instructed them to look around. You are the only educator here who has ever stood where you are. They decided to become more than anybody had imagined was possible. The power to defend, rather than threaten, is what they are now demonstrating. Forge, who was standing next to her, offered his point of view. I naively believed that being feared was a sign of respect 6 months ago. The difference is now clear to me. Your use of power determines the level of respect you receive. As he was about to leave, the Interpol agent wrote one last note. What is truly remarkable? This is something that every single graduate I've talked to has said. Their actions were not the only ones altered by this program. It transformed their identity. While her crew secured the facility, Grace observed. All members are moving with expert accuracy while retaining their individuality. The reason behind this, she said, is that we never made an effort to obliterate their history. We demonstrated the way to elevate it to a level of authority, credibility, and respectability that they had never before achieved. Remembering where it all started, Forge grinned. As a result of a few motorcyclists messing with the wrong soldier, it all began. As Grace observed the onboarding process for new recruits, she made the correction. It all started when someone recognized potential in those who have been passed over by others. Whoever you think you're messing with can actually be the perfect person to assist you out in the end. The building was bustling with activity as the sun went down. Those with a criminal past undergoing training to become lawful guardians. Former enemies now working side by side in the workforce, proving that anyone can make a positive change in their life given the chance and the will. Something groundbreaking had been invented by the erroneous soldier. Rehabilitating someone effectively does not mean erasing their history. This model for change is increasingly expanding internationally. However, it gives it new life and credibility. They had already seen a change at their command center after 7 months. The operations were monitored on 3 continents by many screens, and Forge was in constant communication with the foreign team leaders and fluent security measures that he had previously made fun of. While observing the flawless security maneuvers executed by former British street gangs, he declared that the London unit had reported effective integration. Team Berlin is finishing its certification, while Team Sydney is beginning Phase 1 training. Now that success markers were dotting the world map, Grace inspected it. Regardless of one's location or cultural background, the fundamental idea is universal. People will always choose the stronger option if you provide them with a better one. Breaking news was interrupted by Elena. Important news from Hamburg: contract with the Port Authority is up for bids. Traditional security agencies are being challenged for control by local personnel. Grace responded, perfect test case, and then she retrieved the feeds. Give them an example of how experts deal with it. Their German alums, commanded by the legendary Klaus Weber, a former street lieutenant, showed off their innovative strategy while they looked on. The company's security teams were asked to study their better protocols instead of being fought. Look at the contrast. Forge gestured at the displays. Using force, corporate teams exert control. By being well-versed in all aspects of security, our team is able to head off potential issues before they even arise. What started as a potentially contentious scenario in Hamburg quickly became an opportunity to showcase top-notch professionalism. As formerly incarcerated individuals carried out security precautions that conventional teams could only dream of, corporate clients gazed in astonishment. According to Grace, that is the way genuine change spreads when foreign observers come to watch. Not by competing, but by showing off. Greatness is self-evident. More success measures were brought in by Caleb, who is now their Director of International Training. Both the rate of rehabilitation and the percentage of employment retention have remained stable at 95% worldwide. No alum has ever gone back to committing crimes in any country after graduating. However, there were distinct obstacles to their global expansion. They had to modify their basic concept for every possible cultural difference, municipal regulation, and gang structure. The Tokyo squad is having trouble integrating their hierarchy, according to Forge. The organizational framework of the Yakuza does not correspond exactly to our established norms. Then we adjust, Grace said. Maintain the central idea of transformation via lawful purpose, but adapt the method of execution to meet the specific requirements of each area. They observed their Japanese unit regaining their footing through live streams. Ex-Yakuza members relearning the ropes of professional security while maintaining the same level of rigid organizational discipline. That, Grace told the onlookers, is what makes this work on a global scale. Everybody isn't pushed into using the same model. We demonstrate the steps necessary to elevate their current setup to the level of a legitimate enterprise. A crisis was unfolding in Manchester, where their UK grads were battling their old adversaries, when an alert went off. However, they shone professionalism by containing the situation and converting a possible confrontation into a recruiting opportunity, rather than resorting to violence. Elena later reported that 6 other workers had requested training. They witnessed the way our grads dealt with that challenge. They desire a similar change now. Forge beamed as he reflected on his personal adventure. They went from being a danger to a protector of their communities, and from being feared to respected. Any language can see that change. Grace later spoke to team leaders from 12 different nations through a secure video link during a briefing for international coordinators. They were all former heads of criminal operations. They were now in charge of teams of trained security guards. She informed them that their backgrounds are distinct. There is nothing like your cultures, traditions, and founding groups. What you've all demonstrated, though, is identical. If given the chance, anyone can make a dramatic change in their life. Their worldwide impact was displayed on the displays. Global crime rates on construction sites are falling precipitously. Success tales in rehabilitation are proliferating. Members of the community who had been seen as potential dangers now served as vigilant watchdogs. The true triumph, however, isn't measured by statistics, Forge emphasized. Our evidence supports this. Being fearsome isn't the essence of true strength. Establishing safety is the first goal. That is applicable worldwide. A brand new problem arose. 3 nations' ports were the targets of coordinated assaults. The world, however, witnessed their grads react with synchronized professional precision rather than anarchy. Veterans of the criminal justice system now work as security specialists, defending global trade with methods honed by the military. On a global scale, this is the manifestation of true transformation. Grace filled the shocked port officials in on the details. A shift in focus as well as altered conduct. Following security rules isn't all they're doing. What is meant by security is being redefined. Later that night, additional news of worldwide triumphs arrived. Olympic sites are being secured by formerly incarcerated Brazilian street gangs. Protecting large-scale construction projects are ex-Russian staff. Australian motorcyclists become expert construction site guards. Do you know what's amazing? Look, Elena said. I am reviewing data from throughout the world. This pattern is universal. They desire to participate in the change once they perceive that it is feasible and when they observe tangible results. Forge observed screens that displayed their team's global operations. From a single building site to broad-ranging global operations. It was all because a group of motorcycles approached the wrong soldier and caused trouble. By no, Grace meant right, and she smiled broadly as she credited their international prosperity. For the simple reason that the right soldier proved to everyone that change is possible. A sense of purpose, rather than punishment, can motivate anyone to change. Their multinational teams persisted in their tasks even as night fell across many time zones. Heroes who have served their time now safeguard lawful trade. 2 gangs that were formerly at odds now operate together. Evidence from around the world at the correct chance could change people's lives locally. Some incompetent soldier had brought about AF. Burst of its kind. An international uprising demonstrating that genuine healing transcends geographical and cultural boundaries. But on demonstrating to others how to make more effective use of their power. Standing before the UN Security Council, 8 months after it all started, was Grace. Presenting a global security initiative, the same soldier who had confronted motorcyclists at a construction site was now doing the same. She went on to say that the problem with conventional therapy is that it seeks to forget the past. Forge, with his now iconic steel wolf cut and business suit, stands confidently by her side. We are able to turn our clients' current abilities into real strengths, which is why our method works. 20 countries' operations were shown on the displays behind them at the same time. Protecting construction sites and international shipping lanes are expert security personnel who were once members of gangs. However, the most important thing is this. Even the most cynical diplomats were captivated by Forge's powerful appearance. It's about more than just safety. We're making sure that the youth of today don't have the option to become criminals. They unveiled the latest stage of their presentation. Graduates of the program manage youth engagement initiatives. Those who have been at the head of gangs are now helping at-risk youths find their way to respect and success through mentorship programs. Our graduates have reduced teenage gang recruitment in Rio de Janeiro by 80%, Moscow by 75%, and Cape Town by 85%. This is because adolescents now see a different way to be powerful, as Grace pointed out. Their achievement in port security piqued the curiosity of the Council. International shipping protection had been a challenge for conventional businesses. Their alums did a fantastic job with it. Because, as Forge put it, they can see things from both perspectives. Once upon a time, they were the criminals themselves, so they knew every trick in the book. Rather than threatening, they now used that information to defend. Elena broke the silence with some pressing news. Thanks to their security team's synchronized efforts across 3 continents, a terrorist plot to breach major ports was foiled. As soon as Grace gave the signal, the screens began to display live footage. As ex-convicts flawlessly carried out anti-terrorism procedures, the council gazed in awe. Thanks to their expert knowledge and familiarity with underground networks, they had averted a catastrophic international catastrophe. According to Grace, this is the manifestation of true global revolution. Not content with merely influencing people, but with building an international community of transformed guardians. Caleb, who is now the director of worldwide operations, gave a presentation on the most recent data. Crime rates dropped everywhere their graduates worked, and international business flowed more safely than ever before when more than 5,000 ex-gang members became certified security specialists. According to Forge, though, the metrics don't reveal our true success. The proof that anyone may make the choice to improve themselves is in our work. The crucial issue was posed by a doubtful Russian delegate. Grace kept a smile on her face whenever they were tempted by criminal organizations to betray their new mission for money. Hold up the Stockholm event as an example. International criminals approached their Swedish grads and offered them millions of dollars to turn a blind eye, as shown in the clip. Rather, the escaped gang members collaborated with Interpol to carry out a flawless sting operation, which led to the dismantling of the whole criminal network. Because, as Forge put it, we provide them with something that money can't buy. Honesty, sincerity, and taking pleasure in safeguarding rather than endangering. Afterwards, Grace observed their teams in action across all time zones as they reviewed global operations from their expanded command center. Collaborating for the greater good, defending the community that had previously turned them out, 2 people who had formerly been bitter adversaries. The thing that's truly astounding is, while researching global statistics, Elena watched. The similar trend is evident in every culture and nation. When given the chance, people would rather have legal power than illegal power. While observing the training of both new and returning members, Forge gave a subtle nod. All because, Grace interjected with a smile, of a single heated altercation on a construction site, which in turn changed lives all across the globe. Motorcyclists tampering with the incorrect soldier is no longer relevant. It's about showing that anyone can change for the better if they're ready to make the effort. It was a string of warnings that caught their eye. Concurrent commencement exercises in Dubai, London, Sao Paulo, and Tokyo. Ready to join the global network of changed protectors, former gang members receive their professional security credentials. According to Grace, this is the manifestation of genuine transformation for the people who had gathered. Not by making them lose touch with their identity, but by empowering them to achieve greatness beyond their wildest dreams. Their multinational staff persisted in their tasks even as darkness descended on many countries. People who were once members of opposing gangs now work together professionally to preserve lawful commerce. Evidence from throughout the world that people's lives may be changed by the appropriate opportunity and a sincere sense of purpose. From its humble beginnings as a security solution, something completely new had emerged. A global movement demonstrating that true power is not in instilling fear, but in establishing a safe environment. An international upheaval in healing, safety, and the potential for personal growth was set in motion by the actions of one errant soldier. And somehow, Forge's brother would have been pleased to see his legacy constructed on a building site that had become the site of global change's inception. Grace and Forge's paradigm of change served as the only basis for the United Nations Phoenix Initiative, which was started 9 months subsequent to the initial clash. But as their achievements increased, they encountered their toughest test to date. While Grace was busy with proposals, Elena informed her that the World Economic Forum wanted us to broaden our focus beyond security work. Our concept is being considered for a wide range of potential uses, including corporate reform and peacekeeping on a global scale. Forge can't believe how far we've gone after studying the worldwide streams that show their teams in action, from advising world leaders to threatening building sites. While they were thinking about it, a crisis warning went off. The breaking news was shown on several televisions. At the same time, several large ports throughout the world were attacked by a complex international criminal organization. However, something remarkable occurred to them instead of disorder. Their grads didn't merely react, they had foreseen the danger. Coordinated efforts across 3 continents allowed teams to remain one step ahead of criminals thanks to their shared knowledge of their methods. Grace told the assembled foreign onlookers to pay attention. This is the quality that sets us apart as a people. In the show, ex-gang members spoke across languages and time zones to carry out intricate security routines. A connection was formed between them that went beyond national lines as a result of their common journey of change. An article detailing the Stockholm Group's northern strategy arrived. Teams in Rio de Janeiro and Dubai are guarding sea lanes and petroleum sectors, respectively. From their command center, Forge orchestrated the entire response. Now, police forces all around the globe acknowledge his authority. Actual peace and safety on a global scale looks like this. Not only that, he informed the shocked officials, but it's not enough to just respond to dangers, one must comprehend them thoroughly in order to avert them. The syndicate's operation failed within a few hours. Without resorting to physical force or threats of physical force, but rather via the use of trained professionals who were familiar with all aspects of the law. Caleb announced the arrival of the final numbers. Effortless execution in every zone, no casualties, little property damage, full documentation for prosecution. Grace assembled her global command team for the purpose of debriefing. 20 different national security chiefs, all of whom had graduated from their training and were now heading up lawful protection activities, were displayed on the displays. Something vital was proven today, she informed them. Because it expands upon prior work, our transformation model is effective. You bring a unique blend of professional skills and knowledge of criminal networks to the table that no other security firm can match. The following day was the dreaded World Economic Forum presentation. Leaders from around the world were waiting for Grace and Forge to take their model out of the security realm. Grace informed the assembled dignitaries that the idea applies everywhere. Converting entrenched systems into lawful agents of positive change is the only way to bring about lasting transformation, be it among gang members, crooked corporations, or failed institutions. Even among this exclusive group, Forge's imposing presence allowed him to offer his unique perspective. My group terrorized construction sites 8 months ago. I assist in coordinating operations related to international security today. So what's the catch? While most people saw danger, one person saw opportunity. Behind them, screens displayed statistics that told their narrative. More than 10,000 formerly incarcerated individuals achieved certification as professionals. The places where its alums worked saw a 70% decrease in crime rates. At protected sites, the occurrence of international security incidents decreased by 85%. According to Grace, though, the true effect is not quantifiable. We're demonstrating that change can happen on any scale. The secret remains the same whether dealing with local gangs or global organizations. If you show folks a more effective way to be powerful, they will pick it. Elena broke the news quickly. They had just foiled a huge plot of corporate espionage in Tokyo. Members of the Yakuza, who are now lawful security experts, had safeguarded multinational corporate interests better than any conventional agency. Let them see. It was a nod from Grace. As the screens filled with footage of the surgery. As their graduates showcased the appearance of transformed strength, world leaders observed in awe. Legitimate power that protects rather than threatens, backed by a thorough knowledge of criminal tactics and a commitment to professional quality. This is the reason, as Forge mentioned, why we prosper and others fail. We go beyond influencing people's actions. Their identity is changed by us. Assign them a meaningful task that will allow them to use their strengths while also earning your respect. Grace later saw Forge observing the training of new recruits alongside graduates of their last program as they reviewed ideas for expanding their model. Do you know what truly astounds me? Amused. Think about all the lives we've touched and how far we've gone. An entire community has been changed by each individual here. As Grace watched their staff work throughout the world, she nodded. We realized something that other people didn't, that tearing people down doesn't lead to change. It results from demonstrating an improved method of strength to them. Even as night fell across many time zones, their global network persisted in its operations. Heroes who have served their time now safeguard lawful trade. Two gangs that were formerly at odds now operate together. Evidence from around the world that the correct chance, when coupled with true purpose, has the power to change not only people but entire systems. An extraordinary phenomenon emerged from what had begun as a single soldier's response to a gang issue in the area. Rehabilitation, security, and the influence of legal strength were all being reshaped by a global paradigm for transformation. It wasn't only the wrong soldier who had built a security software. Her actions had ignited a worldwide shift in perspective on transformation, demonstrating that even the most formidable adversaries can transform into formidable allies. After 10 months of their worldwide operation, Grace encountered a different type of obstacle. International development efforts were to be aided by the World Bank's transformation concept. It was being considered for use in UN peacekeeping operations. When it came to organizational reform, even big companies were looking to them for advice. As Elena scrolled through an infinite list, she announced that we've had requests from 30 countries. No longer limited to security-related tasks. They are interested in implementing our approaches in other fields, such as community development and business reform. Forge, who is now the chief of global operations, examined their feeds from all across the world. Surprisingly, it all began at a single building site. Global executives are now seeking our advice on transformation strategies. On each of their screens, an urgent alert appeared. An incident involving corporate corruption in Singapore had jeopardized a substantial development project. They had dealt with it in a novel way, though, as a local team of ex-triad members become professional security specialists. Take a look. Grace guided the visiting representatives from the World Bank. Our model's scalability is demonstrated here. The Singapore squad hadn't merely secured the location. They had used their extensive understanding of criminal tactics to spot the patterns of corruption. Without a hitch, they ended the problem by combining expert protocols with street-smart knowledge. In just 3 days, your team accomplished what our investigative teams failed to accomplish in 3 months. An official was astounded. Just how? For the simple reason that they can see things from all angles. Forge elaborated. After a life of crime, they opted for the path to legal achievement. That viewpoint is priceless. For an important briefing, Grace assembled her multinational command team. Unit leaders from all around the world, each representing a real-life example of the transformative power of transformation, were shown on the displays. With her announcement, she ushered in a new era. There is a greater proof of our success in security work. True change may occur in any setting and at any level. Their revised model was introduced by Caleb, who is currently the Director of Global Programs. Now we're educating more than simply security protocols. We're demonstrating to businesses all around the globe how to transform challenges into opportunities and dangers into strengths. There was overwhelming proof. Their alums were doing more than only lowering crime rates. Whole neighborhoods were being changed because of them. Vibrant neighborhoods had emerged in what were formerly gang territory. Workplaces that were once rife with danger are today paragons of safety for their employees. However, the most important thing is this. Forge spoke to the assembled officials. We can make a difference in the world by transforming one individual at a time. They demonstrate to others the potential. It was a string of warnings that caught their eye. Concurrent activities across 4 different continents, demonstrating the adaptability of their respective concepts. Former members of Brazilian slum gangs are now guarding massive building projects. In Russia, ex-convicts protecting cargo en route to abroad. Newly organized street workers in South Africa are overseeing neighborhood revitalization efforts. The appearance of genuine worldwide change is as follows. Grace let the curious onlookers in on the story. Instead of imposing new systems on people, we should assist them in transforming their current systems into lawful agents of positive change. Breaking news was hurriedly relayed by Elena. A complex worldwide fraud campaign was just thwarted by their Dubai team. Exceptional security experts who had formerly been criminals had noticed trends that more conventional investigators had failed to notice. Display the answer to them. The displays flooded with live feed as Grace nodded. As their alums put their newly acquired knowledge to use, the entire globe observed. They had developed something completely new by combining their knowledge of criminal networks with their professional expertise. Genuine guardians who could foresee danger and thwart it before it had happened. Do you know what's truly remarkable? In the aftermath, Forge pondered as he saw the training of both new recruits and recent graduates. These days, it's more than just transforming people. The way people around the globe view transformation is evolving because of us. Seeing how their teams work across different time zones, Grace gave a subtle nod. Because we demonstrated an essential point, that anything or anybody can be transformed by the appropriate opportunity coupled with a genuine purpose. They were drawn to a new alert. Their Tokyo division had recently finished an operation that had been met with great success, averting a significant security breach at a multinational business. However, prevention was not where the true success lay. Their method was the key. Watch how they're approaching. The visiting officials were pointed out by Grace. There was more to their actions than merely neutralizing the danger. They redirected the would-be assailants, enlisted their help in training, and put them into action. Their global network kept working even as night fell on every continent. However, they were no longer merely serving as security. Real change can happen on any size, and everyone can change given the chance and the appropriate reason, as they were demonstrating. Something extraordinary had transpired from the simple act of a single soldier confronting irate motorcyclists. It had become a paradigm for change that was altering the way the world saw transformation. While seeing their teams compete on a global scale, Forge occasionally asks himself, what would have happened if we hadn't messed with you that day at the construction site? Observing their worldwide success and the hundreds of lives they had touched brought a smile to Grace's face. If someone else had done it, the world would have been prepared for a radical shift like this. We merely demonstrated the process for them to follow. A security program or rehabilitation model hadn't only been designed by the wrong military. Her actions had ignited a global shift in perspective on transformation, demonstrating that even the most formidable obstacles can occasionally morph into powerful catalysts for constructive transformation. Furthermore, Forge's brother would have been pleased with the legacy he left behind as he looked over a building site that had become the location of a worldwide revolution. Structures that connect people's past selves to their future selves, more than just structures. Grace Walker stood at the same area, now changed completely, 1 year to the day after the Steel Wolves had threatened the Phoenix building site. More than just finished, the Hope Community Center was rising. It has become an international emblem of change. Acknowledging the full circle, Forge made the comment while standing next to her in their distinctive style, a blend of professional wear and their original identity. He was now a transformation specialist, global security commander, and his Steel Wolves cut had UD. Onal patches. People were milling about the center. Kids in the neighborhood participate in after-school programs run by former gang members, foreign delegations observe and learn from their example, and new recruits train side by side with veterans. Elena proceeded to announce the latest figures while holding a tablet. According to global data, 15,000 formerly incarcerated individuals become qualified professionals in our first year. In our service areas, the crime rate has dropped by 80%. At protected sites, the number of international security incidents decreased by 90%. However, they were surrounded by screens where the true tales of accomplishment unfolded. Watching their grads in action was possible thanks to live broadcasts from all across the world. Adapted Russian gangs guarding foreign ports, reformed Brazilian crews overseeing Olympic security, and ex-Yakuza defending Tokyo firms. The thing that's truly astounding is, while serving as their chief of worldwide training, Caleb took note. Not a single alum has dropped out of the program since graduating. They aren't going back to their illegal ways now that we've given them something better. Grace observed a unit of newly enlisted men, consisting of ex-enemy combatants from 3 separate nations, undergoing joint training with the assistance of forges. Changing the way security works isn't all we did, she pointed out. We revolutionized the way people around the globe saw transformation. On each of their screens, an urgent alert appeared. A big international crisis was just averted by their London squad. However, the cycle of transformation was being perpetuated as they were already educating the would-be perpetrators, rather than rejoicing in the prevention. According to Forge, who was speaking to visiting UN officials, that is our true legacy. Not content with only neutralizing danger, but turning them into defenders. Every individual whose life we touch has the potential to spark a greater shift. They were encircled by the evidence. International transformation conferences were held at the very location where it all started, the construction site. The land that the steel wolves formerly roamed had transformed into an exemplary community. All throughout the globe, police academies were instructing their students on their security practices. Those initial evenings. While observing both teams work together despite the time difference, Forge questioned Grace. Not only did you turn our attempt at intimidation into a recruiting opportunity, but Grace grinned as she saw their worldwide success and the thousands of lives they touched. You weren't the only one who achieved success. Your example demonstrated that change is achievable for everyone who is ready to make a positive change. Their focus was captured by a last round of warnings. Commencement ceremonies on 5 different continents at the same time. Acquiring their professional credentials, ex-offenders are prepared to become part of the global community of rehabilitated guardians. According to Grace, this is the manifestation of genuine transformation for the people who had gathered. Not by making them lose touch with their identity, but by empowering them to achieve greatness beyond their wildest dreams. They called a special anniversary briefing of their worldwide command team as sunset drew near. Unit leaders from 40 different countries appeared on the screens, and they were all examples of the transformative force of transformation. Grace spoke to them a year ago. We demonstrated, through our actions, that anyone can be changed by the appropriate opportunity and a sincere desire to make a difference. That true power isn't in instilling terror, but in making others feel secure. With his voice exuding power garnered from genuine transformation, Forge offered his viewpoint. These days, we do more than just provide security. We're here to show that change is possible, that anyone can make a more positive choice about their strength. Their global impact was displayed on the screens. Communities formerly inhabited by gangs are gradually becoming safer. Under their watchful eye, once risky construction sites are now exemplars of professional security, ensuring the smooth flow of international business. But Grace drew the conclusion that the numbers and international acclaim don't measure our greatest triumph. Our evidence suggests that the most formidable foes might also emerge as the most effective allies. The key to making a difference is not to bring people down, but to teach them how to use their strengths more effectively. Even as night fell across many time zones, their global network persisted in its operations. Heroes who have served their time now safeguard lawful trade. 2 gangs that were formerly at odds now operate together. Evidence from around the world that the correct chance, when coupled with true purpose, has the power to change not only people but entire systems. A security program and dealing with gangs weren't the only things that the erroneous soldier had done. By demonstrating that even the most unexpected meetings may bring about remarkable transformations, she had set off a global revolution in our understanding of transition. Rising Hope Community Center's lights turned on, revealing the birthplace of it all. Grace and Forge watched as new recruits embarked on their path to transformation. Do you know what's amusing? Forge pondered. According to everyone, it all started when a group of motorcycles crossed paths with the incorrect soldier. Grace disagreed, recognizing their future potential in addition to their previous achievements. The correct individuals were prepared to become more than everyone had imagined, and that is how it all began. They were just shown how to do it. A profound lesson has been learned by the entire world. Changing for the better doesn't mean leaving your past behind, it means being your best self. On occasion, the individuals you should not associate with end up being the ones that bring about the most positive change in the world.
Disclaimer. This channel stands against all forms of intolerance, discrimination, racism, and violations of human rights. The stories shared here are original creations, developed to encourage reflection, understanding, and constructive dialogue. All content is produced with a commitment to respecting diversity and honoring human dignity.